This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Everyone has a dream career, but when you picture that dream career, you're probably thinking of the highlights reel. This video shows you what a random Tuesday in that dream career looks like instead. If you want to be a software engineer, then the common expectation is that you're going to build the next Instagram, Spotify, or Minecraft. You're going to create the next piece of software that millions of people worldwide use every day. It's a random Tuesday. You open your laptop, you pull up the latest changes, and the build immediately fails. You then spend the next 20 minutes figuring out whether it's your code or somebody else's that is causing the build to fail. It was somebody else's. After dealing with that, you move on to your actual task, which is fixing a bug where clicking reset password crashes the app, but only if the account was created before 2021 and also if the username has like a special character in it. So you put a breakpoint into the function and you click the button, but nothing happens. So you spend like 5 minutes trying to figure out why when you click the button nothing happens, and it turns out the function isn't even being called. So now you're clicking through like 6 other files trying to work out which section of code actually decides what happens when somebody presses reset password. And by now it's like nearly lunchtime. You spent the entire morning on this. You've not written a single new feature. If your dream career is to be a corporate lawyer, then you might go into this thinking that you want to advise like the world's biggest companies negotiate billion-dollar deals, like just be in the room when like business deals are happening, which like will affect the global economy and like make headline news. On a random Tuesday, you're working on this share purchase agreement, which just so happens to be like 380 pages long. You're just like reading that manually. You start scrolling, you stop, and you highlight one sentence. And in that one sentence, you delete the word shall and you replace it with must. And then you read the paragraph again, and then you decide, actually, shall was better. So you delete it, you put it back, you put shall back. You keep reading, and you try not to think about the fact that this thing is like 380 pages long. On top of that, someone from the other firm has left 147 comments overnight, and now this is your problem. If your dream job is to be a surgeon, then you go into this hoping that you're going to perform like complex operations that save people's lives, right? On a random Tuesday, you get to the hospital before most people are even awake, and you check today's operating list. You walk to the ward and you speak to each patient for like 5 minutes before theater, right? And then you scrub in, which means you're going to wash your hands very methodically. Like you're going to go through a checklist in your head when you're washing your hands to make sure that you get every single part of your hand. And after you wash your hands, you're going to wash your hands again, and then you're going to close the sink with like your elbow, but then you sneeze, and so you have to wash your hands again. And then someone opens the theater door and you instinctively step backwards because you don't want to brush against anything because you just wash your hands. And then you just like stand there with your hands held like awkwardly in front of your chest while someone else like ties the back of your gown for you because you can't touch the back of it because, as I said, you already washed your hands, and so your hands can't touch anything, but then your forehead starts itching, so you can't scratch it though because you just wash your hands, you can't scratch your forehead. So you have to tell the nurse to scratch your forehead for you, but she doesn't really get the spot exactly right, so you have to spend like the next 20 seconds being like, no, higher, left, little lower, can you scratch harder, lower, higher. If your dream job is to be a robotics engineer, then the common expectation here is you're going to build an intelligent robot that can perform intelligent tasks, right? Like increasingly complex tasks, like self-driving cars or like humanoid robot assistants that like do your washing. We actually already have a robot for that. It's called a dishwasher. But you're going to make one that looks like a human that does the same thing you already have. On a random Tuesday, you're working on a robot and you press run and the robot arm reaches for the box, right? And you're getting excited, but then the robot arm stops halfway and it goes back to right where it started. So you move the camera 3 centimeters higher and you run it again. Now the robot picks the box up, which is, like you fucking did something. Except you celebrated too early because it's holding the box upside down. So you tweak like 1 or 2 more parameters and you run it again. And now the robot arm misses the box completely. And you spend the rest of the afternoon trying to get a robot to perform one movement accurately from one specific distance with the camera at like one specific angle. And it finally does it, right? Yeah. So now you replace the box that you're using with like a slightly shinier box and run it again. And the robot doesn't fucking move. If your dream is to be an investment banker, then you go into this hoping that you're going to work on Wall Street, like work on the biggest financial deals in the world alongside CEOs and like billion-dollar companies. You're going to be at like Wall Street's top firms. On a random Tuesday, you're working on the deck, as you always are, and you center one table, but then the table underneath that moves because you centered the table above. So you fix the table underneath, but because you touched the table underneath, now the chart also moves. So you have to fix the chart, but now the page numbers are on 2 lines, and you're losing your fucking mind because it's 1:30 in the morning. If your dream job is to be a game developer, then the common expectation is you're gonna design the next Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto, Elden Ring, whatever like childhood video game that you loved. You wanna be the person that makes like something as significant and like as amazing as that. On a random Tuesday, you open Unity and you hit play and you walk through the level, right? And everything seems fine, everything seems good until you jump near one doorway and the character just falls through the floor. So you stop the game, right? And you move one collision box slightly and you hit play again. And now the floor works, but now the enemy AI refuses to leave the room. So you spend like the next hour trying to fix that. But in the meantime, someone from QA is messaging you, telling you that the inventory disappears if you pick up a sword while like opening a chest, even though you didn't even work on the inventory system today. If your dream job is to be a data scientist, then you might go into this thinking that you're gonna be the person that builds like the next recommendation algorithm behind Netflix and TikTok, or like you're gonna build a model that can like detect diseases and like solve problems, basically change the future of technology, change the industry, you know, like save people's lives. On a random Tuesday, you open a CSV and column A has dates written as like 01/02/24, but column B has the date as 2024 -02-01. Column C just says Tuesday. Half the customer IDs are duplicated. Someone has written N/A, but another person has written NA, and then someone else just left cell just blank. So you have to now spend the next 4 hours writing code just to get the spreadsheet into like a format that your model can actually read. By the way, if you're watching this video because you want to be in one of these careers, another thing that a lot of people don't tell you about is at some point in most of these careers, someone's going to ask you where your website is. For example, if you're a designer, at some point you're going to have to show clients your portfolio, or you're going to need to show employers your past projects, or like if you're a shop owner, then you're going to need a shop, like an online shop. Basically, you're going to need a website, and while usually, yes, in the past, this is a huge pain in the ass to set up a website, I do actually have a good solution for you, and it's just use Squarespace. And the reason that I think Squarespace is the best option is because most people lack either coding or design experience to make a great website. If you have either one of those skills, very likely your other skill is going to be much weaker. But because Squarespace has a ton of professionally made templates that you can just choose from, you can just pick one of those and it already looks professionally designed, and you can customize it without any coding needed. Another thing you can do is use Blueprint AI for something even more tailored to what you want. So let's say you're making like a software engineering portfolio, right? Blueprint AI can generate a really great starting point for you that you can then customize however you want. Another really good feature of Squarespace is built-in SEO tools, and what that basically means is that it can help people find your website on like Google or like whatever search engine that you're using, which is kind of the whole point of making a website if you think about it, because having a site is good, but it's like only useful if people actually discover it. So when you're ready to get started, head to squarespace.com/crystal for a free 14-day trial, and when you're ready to launch, save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code CRYSTAL. If your dream is to be a management consultant, then you go into this hoping you're going to be advising Fortune 500 companies and like working on the biggest strategic decisions that those companies will ever make. On a random Tuesday, you open PowerPoint and you duplicate yesterday's slides, and you change the title on this new slide from Market Overview to Market Landscape. And because you changed the title, you have to move one chart slightly to the left. Now the text doesn't fit. And the client emails you saying that they would like the colors on the slide to match their brand guidelines, and you had looked at these colors and it's like blue, like the brand guidelines, and you think that you're losing your mind because in your opinion it is the same shade of blue as the brand guidelines, but then you stare at it for like 100 more seconds, and like I guess if you squint and like tilt your head back and like turn your head sideways, close your eyes a little bit more, now close them all the way, then like yeah, you guess the brand guidelines are like a mildly lighter shade of blue. So you go in and you change all of the slides to reflect that very tiny minuscule change of blue color, and then someone else asks you the arrow on slide 6 should point up or like diagonally up, and then you spend the next 20 minutes debating that arrow. If your dream job is to be a research scientist, then you go into this hoping that you're gonna make discoveries that like no one has made before, right? And like be the person that like makes breakthroughs that everyone learns about in science textbooks. You're gonna know your name in the textbook. On a random Tuesday, you're labeling like 20 tiny tubes with a Sharpie pen and then like pipetting 50 microliters into each one, right? And after doing that, you wait, you can go get a coffee, walk around, come back, load the samples into a machine, do more waiting, chit chat with Sandra, like get the gossip of like what's happening over the weekend. And your test is ready, so you open the results, and one of the control samples doesn't look right, because now you can't trust any of today's data. So you throw the printout away, you wash all 20 little tubes, wash the glassware, and now you have to do all of this over again. If your dream job is to be a biomedical engineer, then you go into this wanting to invent prosthetics or artificial organs that transform healthcare, make medical devices basically that save millions of people's lives. So on a random Tuesday as a biomedical engineer, you're dealing with a problem where procurement changes one plastic component, right? And this plastic component is the same dimension and the same color, but now it has a different supplier. So you have to open the risk assessment, you have to find the line that says material ABS 123, and now you have to change it to ABS 124. And you click save and you think that's done, but then you remember the design history file also lists ABS 123. So now you have to go into the design history file and open that, and you have to change that as well. But also, because you changed that, you also have to change the name in the bill of materials. And so you have to go into the bill of materials and change it from ABS 123 to ABS 124. And then you have to go to the verification plan and change it from ABS 123 to ABS 124. And after you do all of that, somebody asks you if you validated the new material, which means that you now have to stop and check another document. And turns out that changing that one tiny piece of plastic, which looks the same, is the same color, but has a different supplier, now requires another round of testing, even though the product, as I said, looks exactly the same. And it's been like 2 hours at this point, and your desktop has 7 different PDFs that all say risk assessment underscore final underscore V3 underscore V4 dot PDF. If your dream is to become an architect, then you go into this thinking that you're going to be the person designing iconic buildings, shaping the skylines of cities. On a random Tuesday, you spend the entire morning in Revit trying to make one toilet layout work, and you move one wall 150 millimeters, but now the door clashes with the sink, so you rotate the sink, but now, because you rotated the sink, the wheelchair turning circle no longer fits, so now the room doesn't meet regulation, so you have to move the wall back, but now the corridor is too narrow. You do that for the next hour or two, and you finally get everything to pass. So you save it, you send it to the client, you close your laptop, and the next morning the client responds to you saying, "We saw the work that you did yesterday," and they ask you if you can make all of the bedrooms just a little bit bigger. And what that means is that not only do you have to now redo every single bedroom, but you also have to redo every single corridor, which has now gotten smaller. If your dream is to be a startup founder, then you dream of building an amazing product and then launching that product and growing the next billion-dollar company. On a random Tuesday, you open your laptop and you decide that today is going to be the day that you finally build that new feature that you've been thinking about. But right as you get started on that, a customer emails you saying that they can't log in. So you have to drop everything and become customer support now. So you have to go fix that, deal with the issue, and once you do that, you try and go back to coding, but then Stripe tells you that yesterday's payouts failed, so now you have to be financed, so you go and you figure that out, and then you try and go back to coding, but now your accountant is emailing you wanting last month's invoices, so I guess you're admin now, so you go and find them, and then you try and go back to coding, but then someone applying for a job asks if you can jump on a call with them, so now you're HR, you get on that call, it takes 30-40 minutes, and then you hang up. Now your biggest customer tells you that they want to renegotiate their contract, so now you're sales, and it's 6:42 in the evening, and the feature that you wanted to work on is still exactly the way you left it in the morning. If your dream is to become a graphic designer, then you want to create beautiful designs, beautiful visuals, and help brands create memorable visuals and branding from scratch. On a random Tuesday, you're placing the images that the client sent you on this design, but you realize that one of the images looks really blurry, so you email the client asking for a higher resolution version, and after 2 or 3 hours, the client emails you back, but they send you back the exact same file, and so you ask them again, and then they send you a screenshot of the original image. If your dream is to become a UX designer, then you go into this hoping that you're going to design beautiful, intuitive apps, work on the next Spotify or the next Airbnb. On a random Tuesday, you're asking someone to book a hotel using the prototype that you designed, and they immediately click on the only button that isn't clickable. So you make a note of that, and then they spend the next 30 seconds looking for the continue button, even though it's right in front of them. You try and resist the urge, crash the out right in front of them because it's right in there and they don't see it. Do they teach people to read in schools nowadays? But you can't say that to them, so instead you just move the button 20 pixels higher and you run the test again and they find it now. Hallelujah. But now they can't find the search bar. If your dream is to be a YouTuber, then you went into this thinking that you're just gonna come up with like fun ideas and film videos and make a living talking about things that you enjoy. On a random Tuesday, you open YouTube Studio for like the 30th time that you've done this morning, and you look at the new video that you just published that like you think is just like not doing as hot as like old videos that you've published. So you look at the CTR of that video and you think maybe the title's the problem. Maybe the video title's the problem. So you change one word in the title and then you wait an hour. And by wait an hour, I mean aggressively continue refreshing the view stats on that video as you wait, but nothing's changed in the CTR. The CTR is like just the same. So you stare at the impressions graph for like another 10 minutes trying to work out if the new title is actually better or if the old title was better, or maybe it was the thumbnail. But also, I don't know if I've given the video enough time to judge. But you also can't wait that long, because if I wait that long, the video will lose momentum because of being newly published. So I can't wait that long. So you spend the next 2 hours wondering if you're washed. And also if you're able to pay rent this month. If your dream is to become a novelist, then really simple, you hope you're going to write the next best-selling novel that millions of people read. On a random Tuesday, you're rereading yesterday's chapter and you decide that the first sentence is just completely awful and you delete it and write instead, "She smiled." But then you pause and you hate that, so you delete it. "She grinned." "She laughed." No. Delete that. You spend 15 minutes looking for like a fourth way of saying "she smiled." Like you look at the sentence for so long that it stops looking like actual words. Like it starts to look bizarre. Starts like looking like a weird hieroglyphic image. You get frustrated, you close your laptop and you walk around for like 10 minutes. Come back, read the chapter again, and then you realize that actually the first sentence was fine. It sounds better. If your dream job is to be a mechanical engineer, then the common expectation is that you're gonna design the next generation of sports cars, robots, spacecraft, or at the very least, you're gonna invent or develop something that makes a real, tangible impact on the world, solves like a real world problem. On a random Tuesday, you open SolidWorks and the first thing you see is a red error symbol next to yesterday's assembly. So you double click it, and one of the parts isn't rebuilding because somebody changed the dimensions of another component upstream. So you spend the next like 15 to 20 minutes like clicking through feature trees trying to work out what's broken, and eventually you find it. The issue is that one hole has moved 2 millimeters, so now the bolt doesn't line up anymore. So you click edit sketch and you try and drag the hole, but the hole won't move. So you try and figure out why the hole won't move. Figure it out, it's because it's fully constrained. So you delete one dimension, but now everything moves. So you click undo, you delete a different constraint, now the hole moves, but like the fillet disappears. So you rebuild and 3 more errors appear. So you suppress one feature and rebuild again, and finally it works. So you print the drawing and you walk over to manufacturing, who looks at it for about like 30 seconds before telling you they can actually machine that corner, so you have to start all over. If your dream is to become a cybersecurity engineer, then you go into this thinking that you're gonna be like a legal hacker. You know, you're gonna hack into systems legally. You're gonna stop cyber attacks. It's so fucking cool. On a random Tuesday, you open the security dashboard and there are 427 alerts, and you know before even starting that like 426 of those are probably gonna be false positives, but you can't be sure, so you still have to check every single one of them. And you click the first one and you read the log and it looks a little bit suspicious. So you open another log and actually you stare at it. It's just Dave in accounting trying to log in from the airport. Close it. One down, 426 alerts left. If your dream job is to be an aerospace engineer, then the common expectation is that you're going to design the next generation of fighter jets, commercial aircraft, spacecraft. Basically, you're going to design the tech that everyone looks at and is like, holy shit, amazed and awed by. On a random Tuesday, you open yesterday's test report and you scroll until you get to graph 17, and there's one tiny spike on graph 17 that's like maybe you think like maybe like 2 pixels tall. You zoom in and it's still there, so you zoom in again and now the graph is just like one enormous blue line and like one teeny tiny spike, right? So you measure it and it's like 0.08, but now you're not sure, was it 0.07 yesterday or was it always 0.08? So you have to check. So you open yesterday's report, confirm it was 0.07. So you email the test engineer and you ask them, hey, did anything unusual happen during test 4? And while you're waiting for the test engineer to like respond to you, you like walk around a little bit, you like twiddle your thumbs, make coffee from the Nespresso machine, and then the engineer finally gets back to you and they reply, oh yeah, someone just opened the hangar door. So now you don't know if there's like an actual engineering problem or if someone just let wind in. If your dream is to become an electrical engineer, then you want to design electronics in like the next iPhone or Tesla. On a random Tuesday, you're troubleshooting and you press the power button and nothing happens. So you check the fuse, which looks fine on the face of it. So you check the power supply, which also looks fine on the face of it. So you check the voltage, which also looks fine. You check the connector, push it in properly, and the board immediately comes to life. And you write, loose connector, close the ticket. If your dream is to be an academic or professor, then you probably go into this hoping that you're going to spend your life researching topics that you're really passionate about, right? And like become the academic whose paper everyone reads, everyone in the field knows your name, and your ideas define an entire generation, entire area of research. On a random Tuesday, you start the day by answering emails, mostly from students. So one student wants an extension on the paper that you set, another one wants a reference, and a third one says they can't open the fucking assignment even though it's due tonight. You approve 2 PhD meetings, reject another one, move one, have a coffee, answer more emails. And once you're done with those emails, you finally open the grant application that you've been avoiding for 2 weeks. Write 3 sentences in that, stare at it, delete 2 of those sentences. Someone messages you asking if you're free to review a paper. You're not, but you sign, you click accept anyways. By the time you sit down to do your own research, it's like 4:40 p.m. in the afternoon. If your dream is to become a film director, then you went into this thinking that you're gonna bring your creative vision to life, you know, like shoot the film that you always dreamed of shooting, and then you're gonna submit this film to like festivals, you're gonna win the Palme d'Or, become an auteur filmmaker. On a random Tuesday, your inbox has 30 unread emails. The first one is from an actor that can no longer make Tuesday. The second one is about the location, which is now fallen through. The third one is from the camera rental company telling you that the lens you booked is suddenly not available anymore. Another email is from your line producer asking whether scene 42 can be filmed before scene 18, and so you open the shooting schedule and you drag scene 42 above scene 18 and you look at it and then you move it back again because you realize you can't change it because there's a scheduling issue with a different actor. And against all of the odds, you finally get everyone on set, right? Like camera's ready, sound's ready, the actor's ready, and you yell action and a plane immediately flies overhead. So you wait and you try it again. You yell action, someone's phone goes off, reset, try again, and now the sun has disappeared behind the clouds. The shot that you're filming and you imagine in your head lasts about 12 seconds, and getting those 12 seconds took the entire morning. But it looks good, you're happy, everyone's happy, and the producer walks over and tells you that you're out of time and you still have another 6 pages to shoot today. So you cross out 2 scenes from the schedule, and now it means that tomorrow's filming schedule also changes. And if tomorrow's filming schedule changes, which means that next week's filming schedule also changes, which means location booking has to change, which means everyone's hotel booking also has to change. If your dream job is to be a criminal lawyer or a defense attorney, then you might go into this thinking every day you're going to be like cross-examining witnesses, delivering powerful, moving, closing arguments in court that like sways the jury. You defend the innocent, you know? On a random Tuesday, you arrive at court at like 9 or like 8:50 a.m. and you sit outside the courtroom and the hearing is delayed again. So to pass the time, you read through the witness statements and then you read them another time because you're still waiting, and you read them. Okay, I'll read it one more time. You highlight one inconsistency and you call your client over and you ask them to walk you through exactly what happened. And while you're doing that, a prosecutor pokes their head around the corner and they ask you, are you open to discussing a plea agreement? And the trial that you spent weeks preparing for never actually happens. If your dream job is to be a family or divorce lawyer, then the common expectation here is that you're going to help families through really hard times, you know, like difficult situations. You're going to protect children's best interests, right? On a random Tuesday, you start the day and you open your inbox and someone has emailed you 84 screenshots of a WhatsApp argument that they had. And so you spend like the next 40-50 minutes trying to work out which of those like messages, which of those screenshots actually matter. And then after you finally finish doing that, you get on a call with a client who's crying because their ex suddenly decided that they want full custody of the kids. And after lunch, you sit in mediation while 2 people who have hated each other for like 6 years argue over their dog. In the heat of that argument, one of them storms out in rage before coming back 20 minutes later. You then spend the afternoon rewriting the agreement that both of these people swore that they would never sign, right? And by 5 p.m., both of them have changed their minds yet again. If your dream is to be a neuroscientist, you might go into this hoping that you're gonna you're gonna be the person that finally figures out how the brain really works, right? You're gonna be the person that develops treatment for Alzheimer's and other neurological degenerative psychiatric disorders. On a random Tuesday, you're looking through the brain scans that you did yesterday. So you go through one participant and then you scroll, next participant, scroll, next participant. Someone moved their head halfway through the MRI on this one. Awesome. Now that scan is unusable. So you remove it from the dataset and you run the analysis again, and the graph changes slightly because you removed that one dataset. And now you spend the next 3 hours trying to work out whether you actually discovered something or if one of the volunteers also just blinked at the wrong moment. If you dream of being a journalist, then you want to break the world's major stories, expose corruption, report on the biggest events happening all around the world. On a random Tuesday, you spend 40 minutes writing one paragraph which starts, "The company ignored complaints." You pause, and you read that again, and then you delete it, and then you replace it with, "The company did not respond to complaints." And you read that, and you think about it, delete that, replace it with, "Former employees interviewed by the paper alleged that the company did not respond to complaints." You have to reread every sentence that you write, just in case someone's lawyer also reads it. If your dream is to become an animator, then you go into this hoping that you're going to work at Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks, and you're going to create the next big movie for them, right? You're going to make a film that becomes an instant classic, like the ones that you watched and you loved as a kid. On a random Tuesday, you're spending your time on this one shot, right? And you feel like the character's arm swings a little too fast. So you move 2 keyframes around, play around with it, play it back and forth 3-4 times, shift something again, play it again, looks a little bit better. But now you notice that the character's weight just seems kind of weird, right? The movement feels weird. You spend another 20-30 minutes fixing that. Play it back and forth 30-40 times, seems better. But now you realize that the blinking looks off. You can't really describe why, but it just looks weird and unnatural. So you move it again, play it again. You spent the entire morning making about 20 tiny improvements to this shot. That shot being still 2 seconds long. If your dream is to become a chef, then you go into this hoping that you're gonna become the next Marco Pierre White, create the next Michelin star menu that people fly across the world just to try, just to come to your restaurant. On a random Tuesday, you're arranging microgreens with tweezers. And on this plate of microgreens, one of the stems is sticking up, so you have to pull it out, but now there's a gap. So you try and find another leaf, but that one's too big, so you have to find another one. And the entire time that you're arranging these teeny tiny leaves with tweezers on this plate, someone behind you, multiple people behind you are crashing the out. Everyone is crashing out. Table 6 needs this right now, chef. I need this right now. You ignore them because the garnish is still not right. You move one leaf, nudge another one, you wipe the rim, and the plate goes to the pass, right? And another empty plate lands right in front of you, and you do it all again. This is the 57th plate of the exact same dish that you've plated today. If your dream is to become a screenwriter, then you want to write the next Breaking Bad, Succession, The Dark Knight, etc. On a random Tuesday, you're going through the notes for the 15th draft of your script. One producer tells you that they think the entire first act is too slow. They want you to rewrite the entire first act. The director wants the ending to be more ambiguous, and someone from production asks whether scene 27 could happen in a cafe instead of at the airport, because if it's at a cafe, it'll save us $60,000. Please, can you do that? The lead actor thinks that their character wouldn't say that line, and the financer wants a happier ending. That concludes all of the jobs. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this one, I made a ton of career videos, which you can check out in this playlist up here or in this video that YouTube thinks you should watch next. Cool.